Hello, everyone, and welcome to this special breaking news edition of Comment Section. That's right, breaking news that we are so excited to talk about. A lot of people are excited because what's been on the topic of everyone's mind lately? That's right, it's the Spider-Man No Way Home trailer. A lot of people have been really counting down to this trailer, especially about if it will confirm if Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield are in fact in the film. Now, last night, actually during this whole week, they've been doing CinemaCon, which a lot of studios go to promote a lot of their big upcoming stuff to people in the movie theater industry. So, before we get into what does the trailer mean about is Tobey Maguire and is Andrew Garfield in the film, there was something else that came up that I thought maybe we could touch on real quick. So, you know, ever since Venom came out, a lot of people have been wondering, is this connected to the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Some people say yes, some people say no. Some people say it's probably an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or Daredevil type situation where, in the show, the movies are canon, but in the movies, the show really isn't canon. So that's kind of how I've been interpreting it this whole time. And we didn't really have a name for the Sony movies since they're not really part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe proper. But for a while, it was known as SPUMC. That's right. Sony Pictures Sony Pictures Universe and Marvel characters. I think that's what it was. Let me look it up real quick. What was it? It was quite the mouthful. Pictures. Yes. Sony Pictures Universe of Marvel characters. Aren't we glad they decided to go with a different name now? So at CinemaCon, they did give an official title to the universe. And the official title is now Sony's Spider-Man universe. So that's right, Sony's Spider-Man universe. So the question is, what does this mean for the future of Spider-Man? Because we all remember in 2019, right after the premiere of Spider-Man Far From Home, Sony announced they were going to take Spider-Man back and put him in the Sony Marvel Universe. But because of, fan outcry and some negotiations with Bob Iger and the head of Sony, there was a new deal that continued to allow Spider-Man to be in the Marvel Cinematic Universe for 2 more films. And I believe it was that'd be 1 more solo film and a team-up film, like a Captain America Civil War or an Avengers Endgame. But it was only 2 movies. And people are wondering, what is the future of Spider-Man after these 2 movies are done? And I've been going back and forth on it, to be honest. Sometimes I think that, they're gearing up the Sony universe. Maybe they're going to take Spider-Man back. Then you hear about how Sony made a deal with Disney to put the previous Spider-Man films on Disney Plus. To which I also gotta say, hey guys, how about you put Spectacular Spider-Man and the MTV Spider-Man the New Animated Series on Disney Plus, because those are great as well. I actually prefer Spectacular over all the live action versions. So I've been going back and forth on it. So what does having the name Spider-Man mean for this Sony Marvel universe going forward? Is it that Spider-Man is now going to be a part of this Sony Marvel universe? Because they could have called it the Sony Venom universe. I think that's what a lot of people online just assumed. They call it that, kind of like how we call the CW television universe the Arrowverse, which is its proper name. Or they could just call it Sony's Marvel universe. But they went out of their way to call it Sony's Spider-Man universe. Now, I'm kind of on the fence about what it means, and I'm gonna have an answer, a bit of an on the fence answer. I think that Spider-Man, Tom Holland's Spider-Man, is going to be the bridge between the two worlds. Kind of like, well, I guess Nick Fury kind of was a little bit. He was in an episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and he was in the movies. I think Spider-Man will probably be the only character that crosses over in both. And you know what? I think that's cool. I think it makes sense where Spider-Man, it's kind of like in the comics, right? He's in the Marvel universe, but yet he's kind of separate. Because I've always considered the Marvel universe kind of divided into four corners. You had the Avengers, the Fantastic Four, the X-Men, and Spider-Man. And yeah, they would cross over, but it really was divided into those four sections. So we could have that. And, you know, if you're a fan of Spider-Man, you get even more Spider-Man if he's appearing in multiple, both in the MCU and in Sony's Spider-Man universe. So that's my guess. I think no matter what, it means Spider-Man is going to appear in Sony's Sony Spider-Man universe. So whether it is Tom Holland, or it would be cool if it was Tobey Maguire or Andrew Garfield, like they were the Peter Parker of the Sony universe. But I think that what's going to happen is that Tom Holland is like the bridge between the two universes. So there's that. All right, so let's move on to the next thing. So a lot of people have been counting down to the Spider-Man No Way Home trailer. Even as someone who is not a fan of the MCU Spider-Man solo films, even I've been curious about this trailer to see if it does confirm the fan theory about is Tobey Maguire and is Andrew Garfield in the film. So the trailer premiered last night, properly last night. There was that really crappy, what was the video recording from a phone of a video recording of a phone of, you know, the Spider-Man trailer. It was really horrible quality. You could barely understand what anyone was saying, but they did finally release it proper. Now, since I'm not a fan of the solo Spider-Man movies, I'm not really going to talk about my thoughts about it. If you like the previous Spider-Man films, you'll like this. If you're like me and don't like them, you're not going to like this. But the big thing that people have been debating over is, even though they're not in the trailer, are Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield going to appear in the film? And we all thought that once the trailer premieres, we'll finally get a definitive answer. Well, they're not in the trailer, and if anything, there's even more debate about if they're in it. Some people think that this really proves that they're going to be in the film. Some people think, no, this kind of put that to bed and said they're not going to be in the film. So I thought, let's talk about this. What are the pros of Spider-Man, those two Spider-Man being in the film that the trailer shows? How does the trailer show that they're probably not going to be in the movie? And I'll kind of at the end give my thoughts about if they are in the film. So let's, just to make it a little easier, let's share the screen real quick and talk about what does this mean. So does the trailer confirm or debunk Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield appearing in the film? So let's go with the pro section real quick. All right. So in the film, the trailer confirms multiverse. That's right. So even as someone who has not seen any of Marvel's Phase 4, except for What If, that's the only one I've seen. Even I know that, hey, Marvel is building to some multiverse storylines. And that's how a lot of people have been assuming that Tobey and Andrew would appear in the film is via multiverse. Like, get a portal to the Raimi verse, here's a portal to the Webb verse, and bring them together, kind of like a live action Into the Spider-Verse, except with them all being Peter Parker. So it, you know, if you were on the fence about it, are Alfred Molina and Jamie Foxx playing, you know, MCU versions of the characters, or are they reprising their roles? Multiverse does strongly suggest that they are reprising their roles from the previous films. And let's go right here. Speaking of that, Alfred Molina and Jamie Foxx are in the film. So that's kind of what started this whole thing about, is this going to be a multiverse storyline? Because before, a lot of people were thinking about the end of Spider-Man Far From Home, in which Peter Parker's identity is revealed to the world. Everyone kind of assumed that that's what the third film will be about. And it wasn't until the announcement that Jamie Foxx from The Amazing Spider-Man 2 with Andrew Garfield that the idea of multiverse kind of started to spring up. And I think there was an Instagram post that Jamie Foxx did, which showed maybe some fan art or possibly concept art of the three Spider-Men together. So there was a little bit of that, but then it really heated up when they announced that Alfred Molina, Dr. Octopus himself from the Tobey Maguire era, was going to appear in the film. So, and then, so that really shows like, hey, maybe there is something to this whole multiverse thing. So there's that. Also, in the trailer, we saw Green Goblin's pumpkin bomb. So Green Goblin is a character that was never officially announced for the film, like how Alfred Molina and Jamie Foxx were officially announced to be Dr. Octopus and Electro in the film. Green Goblin was never announced, and yet we see the classic William Dafoe pumpkin bomb in a specific shot they showed in the trailer. And we heard a very iconic laugh, you know, the creepy Green Goblin laugh that William Dafoe did such a great job in the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy. Yeah, never announced. So this was our first time we actually had some legit proof that maybe there's at least a reference to the Green Goblin. Whether that is William Dafoe actually is in the film, or they just reused the laugh from one of the previous Spider-Man films, and it's just a little Easter egg. But, you know, a lot of people have been thinking that William Dafoe's Green Goblin would be in the film, and in the trailer, we at least got a hint. There's a nice little reference to him being in the trailer. All right. So, what are the cons? Cons. How does the trailer show that maybe Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield aren't in the film? Because like a lot of people have been going and believing like, hey, they're going to be in it, and we don't really know that for sure. So there's that. So one thing that the trailer, sorry, I'm trying to get my notes up real quick. One thing that I think we kind of been forgetting a little bit is that J.K. Simmons is in No Way Home. and isn't the Raimi version. So J.K. Simmons, end of Spider-Man Far From Home, he appeared as J. Jonah Jameson, everyone's favorite newspaper editor in the Marvel Universe, except clearly it was a different version where, I mean, he's bald in this version, and compared to the newspaper editor that he was in the Raimi films, this one was more of a television pundit, kind of like an Alex Jones type character. Is that his name? I think so. So we have him in the film, but he's not the same character. And now look, the film heavily, I mean, at least the trailer heavily implies, because I mean, we didn't really see a lot of Jamie Foxx. I don't even think we saw him. We saw a little bit of lightning in the trailer, but we did see Alfred Molina's Doc Ock, and it's at least heavily implied that this is the Sam Raimi version. Although technically, if he's alive, it would be an alternate version of the Sam Raimi Doc Ock, but really, it's close enough. But there's that. So we do have JK in the film, but he's not really the Raimi version. All right. This one is also pro and con. Goblin's pumpkin bomb, but we never see the character. Yes, we saw the pumpkin bomb. We heard the laugh, but we didn't actually see the Green Goblin. You know, maybe the trailer is trying to save some stuff, but if William Dafoe, if he's in the film as Green Goblin, why would you not show that in the trailer? Why would you hide that until, assuming probably the release of the film? Like, if they're not showing Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield or William Dafoe in the trailer, this first trailer, to, you know, have a big pop at the end, then maybe they're not, if they are in the film, maybe they wouldn't show them in the trailer. But why wouldn't you show them in the trailer? So that right there, maybe the little goblin pumpkin bomb is just something that fell through a portal and we hear the laugh via the portal, and that's all there is. Like, it's just a fun little Easter egg. So what else is there? Well, I know this is a sore spot for a lot of people, but going back to, no, look, I get it. It's heavily implied that Doc Ock is the Raimi version, but there's another thing that we need to bring up. Evan Peters' Quicksilver in WandaVision. Now, full disclosure, I've not seen WandaVision, but I remember when seeing online the reaction to the reveal of Evan Peters playing Quicksilver in WandaVision, the excitement that people had, and then the disappointment when it wasn't really Quicksilver. It was some guy named Ralph, and I won't even bother to mention the joke that they've made. So, yes, we had Evan Peters as Quicksilver for a while, but then there was a twist. He was not really Quicksilver from the Fox X-Men films. So, let's look at the competition real quick. I know some people are like, no, let's stick with Marvel. But no, let's just look at, because there is something kind of similar happening with DC right now, and that is DCEU, The Flash, officially announced Michael Keaton as Batman. So, you know, remember a year ago when it just came out of the blue, Michael Keaton is going to be Batman again in The Flash, and like the hype there was of, oh my God, my childhood Batman, is going to be back on the big screen. I mean, Michael Keaton is my favorite live action Batman. So, you know, even if it sucks, I'm glad there was at least an attempt to bring him back. So there was all that excitement, and The Flash never did try to hide that Keaton is in this film. Versus with Spider-Man No Way Home, why would Marvel want to hide that until the release of the film? I mean, if they had it officially announced, even before filming started, that Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield are going to be in the film, that would have broke the internet. People have been like, yeah, Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield. Because people love those versions. And to see them again would have had a lot of the same excitement that Michael Keaton is as Batman. So, you know, I mean, just compared to the two different companies, they announced that Keaton is going to be in the film versus Marvel didn't. And they've been denying it too. And it's really just the fans just saying, no, we know they're in it. It's the worst kept secret in Hollywood that they're not in it. So there's that you gotta take into account of, if they're in it, why wouldn't they officially announce it? So let's also bring up this. So they never hid pop appearances like Spider-Man in Captain America Civil War or Doctor Strange in Thor Ragnarok. Is that how you spell Ragnarok? Oh, close enough, I guess. So even compared to previous Marvel films, like, I mean, obviously Spider-Man being in Civil War was as much of a pop as Tobey and Andrew being in No Way Home would have been a pop. But in Civil War, they never did hide Spider-Man. I think he wasn't in the first trailer, and you know, a lot of the CGI had to be done with his suit. So they probably weren't able to put him in the first trailer, but they did have him in the second trailer. And even before that, he was officially announced as being in the film. You know, it was announced like the first MCU movie Spider-Man is going to appear in is Captain America Civil War. And we knew that. Another thing is Doctor Strange and Thor Ragnarok. That was a pretty brief role. I think it's only like 3. It's like less than 5 minutes. I think it may only be 3. But it was announced that even before filming, I think, that Benedict Cumberbatch would appear in Thor Ragnarok as Doctor Strange. So if Marvel is actually hiding the fact that Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield are in the film, it would completely contradict what they've done in previous films, even in Avengers Endgame, right? They wanted to make us all think that like Spider-Man, Black Panther were dead, but they were officially announced as they will be in the film because we all just knew that. All right. Now, this to me is kind of the big thing about why I don't think Tobey and Andrew are in the film. Why officially announce Alfred Molina and Jamie Foxx, but not Tobey and Andrew? If they were going to try and keep it secret that this is going to connect to the Raimi verse, to the Marc Webb verse, why would you announce Alfred Molina and Jamie Foxx, but not Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield? You know, already by announcing Alfred Molina and Jamie Foxx, you kind of already created the expectation of, hey, this is multiverse. This is combining the legacy of all three Spider-Men. I mean, maybe four if we find out that Peter B. Parker, Miles Morales from Into the Spider-Verse pop up in it somewhere. But why? I mean, I would think, like, if you're going to announce Alfred Molina and Jamie Foxx, you probably would have announced Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield. So my guess is that, now it changes a lot for me, but my guess is that I don't think Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield are in the film. Simply because, I mean, look, they're not in the trailer. DC officially announced Keaton was going to be Batman. They never hid pop characters like Spider-Man in Civil War or Doctor Strange in Ragnarok like they would be for Tobey and Andrew in Spider-Man Far From Home. And if they really wanted to keep it under wraps, why announce Alfred Molina and Jamie Foxx, but not Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield? So again, I go back and forth about, but I kind of lean towards, I don't think that they're in the film. So there's that. All right. So as we get into this breaking news thing, which has been pretty fun so far, it's been fun because all night I've been going back and forth. Oh my God, are they in it? What does that trailer mean? Even as someone who doesn't even like the solo MCU Spider-Man movies, what does this mean? Is it them or not? But so yeah, this has been really fun to do. So, I've given my thoughts on if they're in the trailer. So just for a little bit, let's go to some of the comment section of what people think for the film. So some people, some shows, they have real fans, to which I laugh and say, haha, real fans. That must be nice. But we don't have that over here. So I gathered a bunch of comments from YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. So let's see what other people think about the No Way Home trailer and what they think it means for the possibility of Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield appearing in the film. So let's go to the first one. And I'll bring up the questions real quick just so you can see them. All right. So first up, Doc Ock and Pumpkin Bomb. I think I just shed a tear. The Raimi verse is back, everyone. So yeah, that is what a lot of people are hopeful for. And hey, even if it's not really the Raimi verse, even if it's just like an alternate universe of the Raimi verse, yeah, I mean, it's probably the closest thing we'll ever get to having a continuation of the Sam Raimi Spider-Man. I mean, for me, I kind of feel like the influence of Sam Raimi in the Peter B. Parker version is kind of close enough. But yeah, I mean, having a little bit of it back is really special. So I feel that. I mean, in the early 2000s, I mean, when I think of the early 2000s nostalgia for Spider-Man, it's the Sam Raimi Spider-Man films, the Ultimate Spider-Man comics by Brian Michael Bendis and Mark Bagley, and it's also the Amazing Spider-Man comics by J. Michael Straczynski and John Romita Jr. So, yeah, very special spot for the Raimi films. All right, so let's go to the next one. We're really referencing One More Day. Is that the best idea? Yeah, because the One More Day storyline is probably the most hated Spider-Man storyline. Well, maybe besides Clone Saga. But One More Day is pretty much hated. To be honest, I've not read One More Day yet. I do own it, but I haven't gotten around to reading it yet. But I think a lot of people, it's more of what the story did to Spider-Man, how it kind of retconned his marriage to Mary Jane Watson. And I could see them going that path of, hey, I mean, the MCU Spider-Man is kind of a divisive version of the character. I mean, he's probably the closest the MCU has to the Henry Cavill Superman, just being so divisive. Like, people love it or they hate it. So I could see them using it as a way to retcon certain things. Like, maybe Zendaya's MJ will have been Mary Jane Watson the entire time. Maybe. Maybe Ned will have been named Harry Osborn or something and won't have that obsession with Legos or whatever. Maybe, oh, please. Maybe the stupid AI in the suit will never happen and he can be Spider-Man, not an Iron Man knockoff. So maybe there's that. But I do think that One More Day, at least from the trailer we've seen, One More Day is really being used more as setup than anything else. It doesn't look like a full adaptation of One More Day, so there's that. But yes, clearly they did take some influence from One More Day. All right, so let's go to the next comment. If Tobey shows up in the movie, I'm going to yell and cry at the same time. This man made my childhood. Yeah, I agree with that because now for me, my first Spider-Man was Christopher Daniel Barnes in the 90s Spider-Man cartoon that aired on Fox Kids. So that one's the most special to me. But yeah, Tobey was my first live action Spider-Man, as he was for a lot of people, unless you're older. Then would have been Nicholas Hammond or that cool Power Rangers version Spider-Man they had in Japan, which I haven't seen any of, but they're probably on YouTube somewhere. But yeah, hey, by the way, I don't think Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield are in this film, but if they're able to pull it off where throughout the whole filming process, throughout all of marketing, they were able to keep it a secret. And it was a Michael Scott in the Office finale type of surprise appearance. Seriously, that would be quite the accomplishment. Even if the movie sucks, that would be impressive. The fact that they were really able to keep it under wraps like that would be really cool. But I don't think they're in there, but maybe. Also, I don't know how many people have seen it compared to live action films, but if you love the Tobey Maguire Peter Parker, Into the Spider-Verse, the Jake Johnson version, does take a lot of influence from Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. If you want, personally, I kind of consider them the same version. Like, I consider Into the Spider-Verse like a Spider-Man 4. And if you really want to get even more like Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, you should check out the MTV Spider-Man cartoon they did in 2003, because that one really tries to be like the Sam Raimi Spider-Man. Same thing. It's kind of like the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or Netflix situation, right? Like, in the movies, that cartoon show never really happened. But in the cartoon show, those movies happen. So, personally, I consider it canon that they are the same character. It wouldn't have happened if Doc Connors had become the Lizard in Spider-Man 4, but he didn't, so I guess it's close enough. I mean, even, like in X-Men, the Fox X-Men movies, they contradict each other all the time, so probably could have been something like that. But yeah, if you love Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, you should check out the MTV Spider-Man cartoon. I think you'll probably like it. All right. So let's go to the next one. Not gonna lie, I was hoping we wouldn't get a trailer at all. Would have been cool to not know anything before seeing it, but this looks awesome. Yeah, that wouldn't have really been able to work because you gotta tell people what it is. I mean, at least it's not like what some of the comics do. Like whenever like a character dies in a comic, like what was it recently? I think it was Alfred in a Batman comic. Like it got leaked like a week before the comic came out or something, that Alfred died in the comic. And I was like, oh, really? Did you kind of wait a little bit? But yeah, I mean, it wouldn't have really worked to have been able to have the movie without a trailer, but at least it's not like some other trailers. Like, as great as the movie is, the Lion King trailer, if you go on YouTube, gives away the whole plot of the movie in 3 minutes. So yeah, there's that. So at least it didn't give away everything. It leaves you, if you're a fan of this version of Spider-Man, which personally I'm not, but if you're a fan of this version, then it does leave you with some stuff to ponder, like what is coming next for this incarnation. All right. Oh my God, so pumped for this. Looks great. Looks like it was incorporating a mix of Into the Spider-Verse and One More Day. Hopefully not the crappy parts, but looks great and I can't wait. Yeah, so a lot of people have been noticing the One More Day type influence. Yeah, I've only read the first issue of One More Day. I mean, I know kind of what happens. I know the basic gist of the story, but it seems like the One More Day thing is really just kind of set up to the multiverse type story. And yeah, this looks like it's going to take a lot from the Into the Spider-Verse, although this time it wouldn't be Peter going into another universe. It'd be characters from other universes coming into Peter's universe. So there's that. It's a different version, which I guess, you can appreciate that they're not just trying to copy the animated movie, which is so great. And yeah, I mean, Into the Spider-Verse isn't a movie you could really do in live action, just because it's more for the hardcore fans. Like, I mean, to do Into Spider-Verse in live action, you probably would have had to have had like 20 years of a full continuity of Spider-Man films beforehand. So, but it looks like they're doing a more simplified version for like the more casual fans who will just watch the live action films. Although everyone should see Into the Spider-Verse because it is great. Spider-Man 2 by Sam Raimi is still my favorite Spider-Man movie, but the Peter Parker in Into the Spider-Verse, Peter B. Parker by Jake Johnson, is my favorite movie version of the character. All right. One person said, maybe it won't be so bad, but as far as I'm concerned, it's not canon for me. The MCU ended with Endgame. And yeah, I get that. Personally, I feel the same way. Like, I was invested in the Marvel Cinematic Universe for Captain America, Iron Man, and Hulk. Could have been Spider-Man, but I don't like the solo films of Spider-Man. So it doesn't really feel like Spider-Man's a main character in the MCU. He feels like more of a guest star in it, just because I don't like his solo films. But I get what you're saying. I'm kind of going the same way for Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. Like, for me, Doctor Strange is not one of my favorite characters, but it's Sam Raimi directing it. The dude who made, in my opinion, the best Marvel movie of all time, Spider-Man 2. He's directing, of course. That raises my excitement. So I'm going into it like, for me, the MCU ended with Endgame. If this is great, I will be happy to add it. And I almost think that going into this film, because we know it's at least hinting that it's trying to connect the previous Spider-Man films. I think even more so, it's important to go into this viewing it not in continuity with Sam Raimi and Marc Webb Spider-Man films. Because I don't think it'll be where, they pick up Tobey and Andrew from the films and drop them off and we're left with the adventures continue. I think probably what will happen is one of them will die and the other will retire. Because, in the MCU, they're not the real Spider-Men like they were when they had their own series. They're alternate version of Tom Holland Spider-Man. Like, same thing with Batman in the Flash movie. Like, I'm going in to the Flash movie not thinking of it as a continuation of Tim Burton's Batman. Like, I'm going in viewing Michael Keaton's Batman as this is an alternate version of Ben Affleck's Batman. And just as a fun little wink to the audience, they brought in the best Batman actor of all time, Michael Keaton, to play him. That's how I'm viewing it. If I love what they do with Keaton's Batman, then I'll be like, okay, this is a continuation of that version. But yeah, I think going in probably for the previous Spider-Man of, okay, this isn't canon unless I will it to be, then I think that's probably the best thing. So you don't risk tempering your expectations. Kind of like the CW's Crisis on Infinite Earths. Tom Welling's Clark Kent appearance is not canon. Even if they do the Smallville animated show, I guarantee you that won't be canon. Yeah. So let's go to the next question. So yeah, probably best to go in viewing it as its own separate thing and not a continuation of Tobey and Andrew's film. All right, next up. Us. Where is Tobey and Andrew? The trailer. I missed the part where that's my problem. I always love seeing whenever fans are able to take a quote from a movie and make it apply to something. That's always great. That's always fun to see. Yes. Where are Tobey and Andrew? Who knows? Maybe they're not even in the film. It's possible, guys. I think so many people have just been going in expecting it to happen that I think some are starting to forget, hey, they might not actually be in the film. And I think you got to kind of accept it if, like, there's a chance they're not going to be in it. I don't think they're in it, but yeah, it is what it is. All right, let's go to the next thing. I'm still a little thrown that Doctor Strange would even do a spell like this for Peter. Seems very unlike him, or that he would mess it up. I mean, I guess the multiverse story has to start somewhere, but didn't think this would be it. Yeah, that was something I didn't like about the trailer. It feels like in the John Watts Marvel movies, everyone just kind of becomes immature and jokey, like compared to like Iron Man and Captain America Civil War, right? He goes to see Aunt May. Tony even mentions like, oh, not even your unusually attractive aunt. But then in in Spider-Man Homecoming, directed by John Watts, he goes, in that, the video in the opening goes, hey, mate, what you wearing? Something skimp, I hope. It's just, I mean, did Tony Stark just become 15 or what? Like, really? And even like, this is where, again, if you will, in continuity, I don't I don't count the Homecoming movie as canon in the MCU. It's like a weird little Elseworlds thing. Even in like Homecoming with Spider-Man himself, in Civil War, he's concerned about, I can't just drop out of school, I've got homework. But in Homecoming, he's like, Ned, I don't need this. I am so above school. I'm going to be an Avenger. And it is two contradictory characters. So yeah, that's the thing with having multiple directors doing episodes in a movie franchise, is that they're going to bring their own spin, their own flavor to the character. And yeah, I did not like Doctor Strange in the trailer. It bothered me a lot about how it seems like the whole premise of the film is just based on a joke. Like, oh, well, let's have fun and make a spell. And then there's a joke about how Peter talks too much and it screws up the whole multiverse thing. So yeah, I did not like Doctor Strange in the trailer. All right, next up. Why is Strange's personality so weird in this? The way this all starts seems kind of lame with him doing the spell. Excited though. Yeah, again, I don't like what they did with Doctor Strange in this trailer, but these Spider-Man movies are so jokey. It feels like it's jokes first, plot second. Like, even in Homecoming, like the scene with Captain America on the TV screen when they're showing the video in gym class. And, again, gratuitous Avengers reference. Oh, I'm Captain America. Here's your thing. Here's what you need to do in gym class. And then you have the coach say, all right, thank you, Captain America. I'm pretty sure this guy's a war criminal, but whatever. It feels like it's jokes first, plot second. That's not why I like in Spider-Man. Like, I love the Spider-Man True, the inner conflict the character has. Yes, there's obviously funny moments. Spider-Man himself is a very funny character, especially in the Andrew Garfield films. And yeah, in the Tobey Maguire films too, as well. Like, the funny moments from Spider-Man are his dialogue and messing with the villains' heads. Like, there's this great, was it Ultimate Spider-Man, Volume 2, the graphic novel, where it's the second storyline where he fights Kingpin, and he literally just stops Kingpin right there. Because a bunch of stuff has happened. Like, there was a bunch of inner conflict that Peter had to go through about, like, hey, is my family gonna be in danger, stuff like that. And he just reads off a bunch of insulting note cards to Wilson Fisk, just kind of like, hey, you're caught, and here's the thing to make you feel even worse. So Spider-Man himself, like, the dialogue is the funny moment. I just wish that, and this is also the MCU as well, I wish it was less sitcom-y. I really miss the whole Marvel DNA of, these are characters, these are superheroes who go through normal everyday problems like regular people. And unfortunately, it feels like they don't do that as much anymore. And I wish they would get back to that. I wish they would do that so much. Maybe we'll get back to it whenever the MCU inevitably ends and reboots, or maybe there'll be a separate animated thing, but who knows? Yeah, again, I don't like Doctor Strange in the trailer. So no Tobey or Andrew, but really good trailer. And I think that's how people are probably going to have to go into the movie. Like, now look, I don't like the Spider-Man movies in the MCU, so I don't even think I'm going to see it unless, like, Spider-Verse 2 is coming out soon. I'm like, oh, let's rip that Band-Aid off, get it over with, because there's a good thing coming up. But I think, like, if you're a fan of the MCU Spider-Man movies. Like, if you don't like it, you don't like it, and that's just one thing. But don't let the fan theory that Tobey and Andrew are in it and then having it not come true ruin it for you. Like, if you don't like the plot, that's one thing, but don't have it ruined because, well, Tobey and Andrew aren't in it, so this movie sucks. Like, if it sucks, and I don't think I'll like it, but if it sucks, let it suck on its own. All right, what's the next thing? My theory, Strange and Wong were in on it. This is a lesson to teach Peter how to figure out what he wants and how to cope with everything the universe is throwing at him. In an effort to avoid major branches in the timeline, he's only introducing villains that are already dead or about to die. That's a nice theory. I don't think so. I think the fact that Wong specifically said, don't do it. And then Strange was like, yeah, okay. And then gave a little wink. I mean, that could be a twist, but I don't think that's what's going to happen. And if the movie does confirm that these are the Raimi and Webb versions, I think maybe it'll be a back in time type situation where Doc Ock, it was like maybe right after he robbed the bank that Peter and May were visiting, or Electro, it was right after the whole fiasco in Times Square type thing. So I think it will be like a back in time thing. I don't think it's specifically about the characters dying or whatever. I don't think that they're going to be brought back to life. I think it's one of those like just random things through space and time and all that. Because he's a wizard and he can do whatever he wants. Okay. So they're doing one more day / brand new day, sort of. I mean, maybe. I mean, that is the way of how in the comics they brought back Peter's identity, secret identity, which in the comics, I mean, I don't think they're going to show it here just based on the dialogue, but in the comics, when everyone knew that Peter was Spider-Man, Aunt May was shot during the Civil War storyline, and she's in a hospital bed dying. And that's kind of what sparks the whole Peter goes to Doctor Strange to get help. And there's this really cool scene because I've read the first issue where Peter like fights Tony Stark and is just like, I trusted you, Tony. Because, I mean, I'll be honest, in Civil War, the movie, you can kind of see Tony's point. But in Civil War, the comic, I am full Captain America. Tony was wrong. And yeah, I even almost skipped the first Iron Man movie, besides the fact that I'm just not a big Iron Man fan, even though I like the movies. I almost skipped because I was like, yeah, remember in Civil War, he was such a jerk. And even like in Marvel Nemesis, the video game, I would always have like Spider-Man and Wolverine fight Iron Man because like, you jerk, you traitor, you betrayed us all. It was nice because in the Civil War storyline, Hulk wasn't in it. He was doing the Planet Hulk thing. So my other favorite characters, Spider-Man, Wolverine, Captain America, were on one side. Even though Spider-Man, he goes back and forth. He's kind of like Black Widow in the movie. So yeah, there's that. Where was it? Oh, so yes, I think they're going to use it to retcon the identity and maybe retcon some stuff people didn't like about this version of Spider-Man. And maybe this whole brand new day thing, it'll be he wakes up in the Venom universe. Oh, Sony Spider-Man universe. And that could be a way. That is what a lot of fans have been wondering, is this his exit from the Marvel Cinematic Universe? I don't know, because he still has one more film in the current deal, which is assumed to be a team-up film. But I guess we'll find out later. It could always be a flashback type thing. Or if they do a prequel movie like Black Widow was. Because, a Spider-Man film, no. Maybe an Avengers type film would be the better exit for him, like having him cross over with all the characters instead of just being by himself, and then to go to be with more movies by himself besides the Sony supporting characters. All right, so let's go. We'll wrap this up soon. So let's see. We'll go to here. Electro was there. Did anyone else notice lightning? Honestly, I didn't notice it until other people brought it up online. And then I was like, oh yeah, that is lightning, because Jamie Foxx was excited. Be like, I'm not going to be blue this time. Because that was very inspired by the Ultimate Spider-Man comics, which is what the Marc Webb movies basically were. They're very heavily inspired by Ultimate Spider-Man. This seems like it'll be more based on the traditional Marvel 616 universe, where he'll probably have a green suit, maybe a yellow head. I don't think they'll give him the mask, though. I think the mask is out. I think he'll probably be yellow electricity instead of blue. All right. Let's keep going. I'm indifferent about this premise. It seems kind of comical. He's using Doctor Strange like a genie, and Doctor Strange just accepts, even though he knows the dangers of changing reality, and he messes up the incantation by Peter's babbling. The Doctor Strange? Yeah, again, not a fan of Doctor Strange in the Spider-Man No Way Home trailer. Yeah, it just feels like it's jokes first, plot second. And he feels so unlike the version we saw in Infinity War. I mean, Doctor Strange, the first movie, he's becoming that character, but in Infinity War, he's like fully Doctor Strange. It feels like a very different character from Infinity War. All right, so it's amazing how they got so much hype in this without having to show the other Spider-Men, if they're there, but still showing villains from the previous versions. Yeah, I mean, Dr. Octopus is my favorite Spider-Man villain. So, I mean, if I was a fan of this version of Spider-Man, I've been like, oh my God, Doc Ock finally, because that is my biggest regret over the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movies. And I love the first Amazing Spider-Man, like the second one. Andrew Garfield is actually my favorite Spider-Man actor. Live action, that is. And that's my one biggest regret, is we never got to see him with Doc Ock. There's like in the end of Amazing Spider-Man 2, there's a little reference where you see the arms at Oscorp. But I mean, it's been a while since we've seen Doc Ock in a movie. So that's exciting. Electro, I mean, it'll be cool to see Electro. Electro's not one of my favorite villains. I kind of felt like in Amazing Spider-Man 2, he was kind of just there. It was more of, I think the bigger villain was Harry Osborn in the movie. And they were both combining the traditional Harry Osborn Goblin storyline with the Ultimate Spider-Man Venom storyline, where Harry in that film was very much like Eddie Brock in the Ultimate Spider-Man comics. So yeah, but it is cool to have previous actors come back to play the characters. But yeah, Doc Ock, oh man, I just remember every time when I was little, whenever the Spider-Man show on Fox Kids would air, man, like I always get me excited, but there was something extra special when Doc Ock would show up. Also, by the way, played by Ephraim Zembus Jr., I think his name was, who was also Alfred in Batman the Animated Series. So there you go. That was a fun career that dude had. All right. Hope this isn't super campy. We're all pretty much hyped to see the Raimi verse again, though. I think you kind of probably... if you're worried about the tone, I would say if you like the tone of Spider-Man Homecoming and Spider-Man Far From Home, that you'll probably like the tone in this one. If you're like me, you're not a fan of how light and comical it is, you probably won't like the tone that this movie is going to have. But yeah, I mean, even if it's just a little, like the way a lot of people felt about seeing Doc Ock again, like a little bit of a continuation of the Raimi verse, is how I feel when I see Peter B. Parker in Into the Spider-Verse. Like, he's not the same character, but there's so much influence that there's a bit like, I'm home again, something like that. So I get what you're feeling. Even though I don't like the solo Spider-Man movies, I get what you're feeling. Like, like we're revisiting the version that a lot of people like, that's their Spider-Man. Like, again, the 90s Spider-Man cartoon is my Spider-Man. Also, Spectacular is also like, they're tied because you can't beat perfection. And those two, I love those two shows so much. Why even bother to compare which one's better? The answer is both. Both are better. But yeah, I get what a lot of people feeling. Like, you know what? It's kind of like there was that really bad Ultimate Spider-Man cartoon with Drake Bell, and they had Christopher Daniel Barnes voice like a medieval type Spider-Man in the show for a Spider-Verse storyline. Speaking of Spider-Verse, that was awesome. I might have to rewatch that soon. But yeah, that was awesome. Even though I don't like the show, it was so great to hear Christopher Daniel Barnes as Spider-Man again, and he's doing like an old English accent. Oh, it was awesome. Even for a show I don't really like, those episodes are pretty good because they were written by Paul Dini, who did Batman the Animated Series and Superman the Animated Series. Man, I miss Doc Ock, the best villain. Oh, completely agree. Dr. Octopus is the best Spider-Man villain. I think Green Goblin has, he's really tortured Spider-Man. And Venom is very much a dangerous villain. But yeah, for me, when I think of who is Spider-Man's Joker or who is Spider-Man's Lex Luthor, easily it's Dr. Octopus. And yeah, it's one of the reasons Spider-Man 2 for me is just, I love that movie so much. Like, it's the perfect combination of a great story with Spider-Man No More and my favorite Spider-Man villain. Oh, I love it. Dr. Octopus is so great. Speaking of Dr. Octopus, if you want more Dr. Octopus, check out the Spider-Man the Animated Series Doc Ock, which I mentioned because I love that Doc Ock. Also, check out it's later in the season that Doc Ock first appears in Spectacular Spider-Man. Go check that out too, because that is awesome. All right, what's next up? What just happened? We didn't see Charlie Cox, and we know that Charlie Cox is Daredevil. Okay, I'm glad I got to see this before we wrap this up, because the Charlie Cox thing is the one I believe the least. Like, I've never actually believed Charlie Cox is actually going to be in the film. Like, with Tobey and Andrew, there's at least a little bit of a thread that you can pull on. Like, Alfred Molina is going to be Dr. Octopus. Jamie Foxx is going to be Electro. But Charlie Cox as Daredevil has really, that feels very much like a fan speculation. Like, as much as who is Rey in Star Wars? Is she Luke's daughter or Obi-Wan's daughter? Yeah, to me, it just feels, and I don't even know if they're allowed to use Charlie Cox's Daredevil because of the contract with Netflix. Like, I think Netflix might own that version of the character. So yeah, there's that. But of all the rumors, like, I go back, like, I don't think Tobey and Andrew are in the film, but I go back and forth, like, maybe there's a chance. I've never believed Charlie Cox is going to be in the film as Daredevil. All right. I'm holding out for a I am Iron Man moment from Peter at the end. Would be cool to see him mirroring Tony's growth in the first Iron Man film with his own I am Spider-Man. I really don't like that idea. Well, first of all, I really already don't like how similar Tom Holland's Spider-Man is to Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man. Why even have Spider-Man in the MCU if you're just going to tell Iron Man stories? Like, these Spider-Man storylines they've done so far in Homecoming and Far From Home, you could easily have just done those with that kid from Iron Man 3 or the Ironheart character. I think she was created. Maybe she wasn't created in time for Homecoming because she's a more recent character, but I mean, you could have just done those with the kid from Iron Man 3 or Ironheart. Like, there was no reason to have Peter Parker to tell those stories. You could just told them anyway. So I want Spider-Man stories. I want stories that are unique to Spider-Man. I don't need them to be like interchangeable with like Ironheart or Tony Stark or the kid from Iron Man 3. And also, like, Spider-Man's secret identity, that is like one of the most interesting things about the character. Like his duality, his feeling of like, I want a normal life, but I also have this responsibility, but the responsibility is also affecting my normal life. It's that type of thing that is so interesting. I love it with Superman and Batman, the secret identities. That has been my biggest disappointment in the MCU. Maybe not the biggest disappointment. The one thing I would really love to have change, if whenever the MCU ends and we have a rebooted version, I would love secret identities. I would love for people to not know Bruce Banner is the Hulk. Like, kind of like the Bill Bixby thing. Like, he's a guy and he is afraid of people finding that out about him. I'm fine with Tony Stark, people knowing he's Iron Man. Cap would be tough. Cap, I don't think you can give him a secret identity, but I would love for Hulk to have a secret identity. I'd love for Spider-Man. No, let's keep the secret identity. That's so cool. I think that the whole film is showing why it's so important for Peter to have a secret identity. If it ends with him still having public identity, then the whole story was kind of a waste of time. It was just, why did they create all these problems just for him to have, why did he create all these problems to have a secret identity? And then there was that. All right, guys, that'll be it for today with it. So I don't think Tobey and Andrew are in here. This was fun. See you again. And that's it for this special breaking news edition of Comment Section.